Hey, Jason.
Hey, good morning. How are you, Ted?
I'm good, thanks. Good meeting last night.
Was a good meeting. Appreciate
Oh,
everybody's input.
yeah,
Learning a lot.
yeah, exciting. So today we're going to do something a little different. We're not going to do a debrief on a lead. That's getting kind of boring because you're selling everything. So let's talk a little bit about an installation and kind of an interesting, complicated situation where the lady has two systems. And so she had some difficult options.
Yeah, so met with her a couple weeks ago. Had a great visit. She had a high pain score on her comfort quiz for the downstairs unit. We had talked about she watched the video with the static pressure. She knew she had some problems upstairs. She had recently replaced it. We talked about the fact that it had never been permitted. I pulled that up and showed that to her. And some other contractors had pointed out some things that were wrong with the install.
Yeah, do you think
But
there's
she
a
asked,
reason that they didn't pull a permit on this install?
right.
Maybe it's
So
because it
she
wouldn't have passed.
so she asked me to check the static upstairs too when I did the static downstairs. So and it was like 1.22 on the cooling side and like I don't know, I can't remember now, 0.9
And this
or
is an
something in the
ECM.
heating
This is a newer unit, so it's got an ECM blower motor, and
ECM.
it's been running hard and put away
Been
wet.
running hard like that for 3 years.
Okay.
And she when I presented the static pressure to her, I said that it's been running with way too much static. And I actually showed her the label from the furnace that showed it should be 0.5 static, no more than that max. And she said, and she finished my sentence and said, and so it's been running like that for 3 years.
Okay, so I want to emphasize that you take a fair number of pictures when you go up to equipment, and a lot of times people have never even seen their equipment. And so those pictures tend to be interesting for people.
Yeah, especially here in the South, because it's either in the attic or in the crawl space. So most of the time they haven't seen it.
And then
We don't get
it builds credibility and helps them believe you, because instead of just telling them they got a cracked heat exchanger or something like that, you show them a lot of pictures of their attic and then zoom in and zoom in, and it's pretty clear that this is their heat exchanger that they're seeing or
right.
whatever.
So with her, she had mentioned that there's a couple of rooms upstairs that smelled like mildew, and she had a ductboard plenum above it. I cut that open, took pictures of that and the mold and stuff inside of that. I
And that
also,
mildew smell, if I'm not wrong, was starting to bother her fairly significantly to the point where it's impacting her quality of life.
right, one of her sons moved out of that room and to another room.
So it's bothering other people's quality of life too.
Right. And then there were, a lot of code violations, such as the gas line not installed properly. The unit was sitting in the pan without any blocks. It didn't have a pan switch or float switch. The trap was wrong. It was a running trap, but it was really just a bad design the way they had it set up. The unit wasn't level or even pitched towards the drain line, so the water was actually sitting in the pan. And then the flue pipe wasn't installed properly. It was obviously a violation. The outdoor unit had the wrong size breaker. So it had this whole long list of things. And because it wasn't permitted,
None
our
of it got
company
caught.
usually, yeah, our company usually doesn't want to touch that.
Right, right.
And so, you know, do you want to replace the whole new system? Well, she didn't really. And I told her, well, my boss is out of town. He's doing some training. We can schedule the one downstairs, and I can talk with him when he gets back and see if he'd like to
Let's circle to the one
make any
downstairs,
repairs.
because one of the things I think that you picked up on when you were helping her decide on her perfect specification was that we had placed the equipment above the install. And with this lady, she picked the 5-stage, and then she went down to the install, and there's a lot of air quality things in the install that she wanted, and that blew her budget, and you had to circle back and take the 5-stage away from her and move her into the crossover unit. And so that it's this job, in case people are paying attention, that is likely the job that is causing us to move the equipment below the install, so that when you're helping people think about what their perfect install is, they can pick their installation items, and then with the money they have left, they can decide what smiley faces they can and can't survive with when it comes to equipment.
Right.
Sorry for interrupting at each stage. There's a lot of good stuff here.
Yeah. So she, with the downstairs unit, she had you know, the yellow fair smiley face with the dehumidification part, and she
Right.
was willing to deal with that. And she knew that she could either, you know, put in a room dehumidifier to help if she had to, or add a ventilation dehumidifier to the downstairs unit, which would be expensive, but she knew her options. And so we'd cover them well and proceeded.
Responsibly avoided responsibility, helped her understand her risk, and put her in a place where she's comfortable that she understands her world.
Right. So spent some time with her on the report. I sent the report to her, making notes on it, highlighting some of the things that are, you know, with a screenshot and drawing on it and things like that. It started, I think the pain started increasing for concern for the upstairs unit. So much so that she was really wanting to put the downstairs unit on hold and
even though it
we
wasn't
can fix
working.
this upstairs. Yeah. And let's take care of the upstairs. So I knew that I wouldn't have any leverage at all if I couldn't get the downstairs unit. They're definitely not going to want to repair or make any changes to that upstairs unless she just replaces the whole thing upstairs.
Right.
So I kept trying to help her prioritize what was important to her. Then I put together a package or 3 packages for the upstairs replacement or upstairs improvement, and presented it or emailed it to my boss to let him look it over, explain the situation to him, and get authorization. Again, so that would be in his court. You know, it's his business. He can do what he wants to. And so he approved it. So I emailed her a report on Sunday, and she got sticker shock completely, and then was still trying to
So in other words, she thought that the replacement was like, take it out and put it back in. A lot of people have the mistaken belief that the equipment is the expensive part of HVAC, and they don't realize that the equipment is probably priced incorrectly, because it's really the labor and the risk associated with getting the install right and having to commission things. And there's a whole lot of time on either side of the install. It's not just the install, and it's definitely not just the equipment. And so this lady got, she's like, oh my God, taking my equipment out and then putting the equipment back in, but doing it right is going to cost way more than I thought. And I'm only going to be a couple of $1,000s away from just, doing brand new equipment.
Right. So, I had to explain that to her, and I think I used, some of the Sandler stuff where I was like, explained it all. It's very similar to what you're saying. And I said, look, if this was your company, what would you do? Would you do anything different? What would you do different?
Ah, okay.
There's a lot of risk involved in this. And, we got to buy the permit, and pay our guys really well because they're, highly trained. So anyway, we agreed to meet the next day, Monday, yesterday, at 10 o'clock. We were installing the new unit downstairs. And so I would meet her over there. I knew one of the owners was going to be there on site. He's managing the installation. He was going to be there, and I teed it up to him what was going on. And so anyway, so I met her and him over there. We walked upstairs into the attic, looked at the unit. She got a light bulb for us so we could really see it well. And I invited her back up. So like, why don't you come up here with us? And so the owner, I had not prepped him at all. He's not seen pictures. He hadn't know anything other than he had heard it was a bad install. I said, Ernie, tell the homeowner what you see. And he rattled off everything that I'd already told her. And he missed a couple of things. And she said, well, what about the drip leg on the gas line? So then he looks around the corner. He's like, oh my gosh, that's terrible, because it had like flex going into the unit.
God.
And it was like rubbing the
She
thing.
understands that she should probably be project managing projects when people come into her house, because even the good guys are going to miss it.
Right. And so then he's like, yeah, this is not good, because the furnace can vibrate and it'll rub a hole in this gas line. I'm not trying to scare you or anything, but I'm just showing you what I see. And then he was talking about the flue pipe. He's like, somebody's trying to kill you. The carbon monoxide. And then we were talking about the mildew smell and the water sitting in there, and the drain, the static pressure being so high, it can't even drain until it shuts off. And it's probably blowing water off the coil into the duct board and all that stuff. So she heard all that again. And then Ernie had said, and I mentioned to her something similar before, but she heard it again from him, that look, if your house burns down, the insurance company is not going to want to cover it, because they're going to see that there was no permit pulled for this and it was a bad installation. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that's the reality of the situation. So anyway, so I said, why don't we just go sit down and look at those quotes from yesterday again? Let's see you just tell me what you want to do. And anyway, so we had sold the fresh air to the downstairs unit. She decided, and she had already been talking about this, to move in that upstairs. So we moved it upstairs. And then we made all these other improvements. She just wanted to reinstall. She did not want to buy new equipment, even though it's oversized, and the static pressure is still going to be high, because it doesn't have enough return. And somebody probably
Some
upped the
people,
size.
what did
to
you
half
say?
return.
Some people get attached to sunk cost fallacy or something.
Yeah, sunk cost fallacy. Yeah, she
She's
just couldn't let that go, because it don't
let it go.
She spent whatever she spent, $5 or $6 grand putting that in a couple of years ago, and it's still new equipment to her, even though it's getting ready to die again, or something major is going to go wrong with the blower motor. And she's not going to have the comfort that she could have with the better system
and the warranty.
But the warranty, and it was very clear in there that this could break tomorrow, and if it does, it's going to be billed at the regular. Right, we're gonna bill at the regular rate. This is not, there is zero warranty. And so anyway, she knew those risks, and so I let her make her own decision, and I had to live with that. And she decided to just reinstall it with the upgrades, and it was like $12,500.
Did you ask her why she made that decision?
No, I did not this time.
Okay. That's probably a good ad for when you know somebody's making an irrational decision or you suspect they're making an irrational decision. You probably want to understand, like, if it's a hard stop on money, you want to know it's a hard stop on money. And if it's an emotional decision, you want to know that it's an emotional decision so that you can
Well, it was
have made
definitely an
at least
emotional
made that
decision.
move, I think.
I mean, she was wanting to do like some of the improvements, not even including the fresh air, let's just say, but like the duct modifications and some other improvements that we had talked about added up to like $4,700. But I was like, I'm not even sure I can get this approved by my boss because they want to distance themselves from that bad installation. You know, they're not going to want to do a lot of duct work because then all of a sudden there's some gray area about who's liable for the furnace if something were to go wrong. So I don't know that that's going to be a tough sell for me to get that approved. And so it's like I kind of incrementally moved her up, and then, you know, got her to the, I mean, so think about it. She's gone from spending $5,000 or $6,000 2 or 3 years ago to thinking all the quotes she was getting were like $10,000 to $12,000 were way too high. Then I came
For
in
the
and gave
downstairs one,
for the
because
downstairs.
she
So then I came in
spent too
and
little on
gave,
the upstairs one.
right. So then I came in and gave our presentation, and we sold it for 15,500, which is like $3,000 more than everybody else.
Right. So
And
you're
then,
ratcheting. So she's at 15 instead of 6. And that's just for the downstairs.
so at the end of the day, she ended up spending like over $26,000, including just moving the fresh air to upstairs.
And if she had gone to 30, she'd have new equipment.
Right.
Okay. That feels like it's probably an emotional decision to me, not a rational one. But I don't know what goes on in her world or her life. So that's me jumping to conclusions.
Right. So
And it's unfortunate she doesn't have somebody in her life that could have said that to her.
well, and her husband, I think, is working overseas or something, but you know, I think,
Hmm.
you know, you got that feeling of she made, you know, she knows she made a bad decision before, so she's trying not to make another bad decision. But
Well, she's carrying that bad decision with her the rest of her life instead of being like, get rid of that bad decision, take the lump, and then have it be part of it doesn't have to be a memory if it's not in your face every day.
right,
Whatever. So you'll have another sale in a year or two.
right, yep,
Another $16,000 sale. It's sort of I mean, you feel bad on the one hand, but on the other hand, okay, your
well, the
money.
key takeaway on two of these things is I do feel like a responsibility in two different ways, not only with her choices, her decisions, but, you know, also giving the options to the ownership of the company and letting
Right.
them decide what they want.
Right. No
And
coercion to either side. You're just the guide.
yeah, and so, and then the office manager, as soon as that sale goes through, you know, she's like talking to the installation manager owner, saying, "Oh, this job will never go in. You know, the big boss is never going to allow that to go in. I don't even know why he sold that." And installation manager's like, Jason already got it approved yesterday. in writing. He showed it to me. Responsibly avoiding
I'm just here
responsibility.
coming up with options and let everybody decide what options should be on the table and what options shouldn't. I'm not out there selling, I'm not going off script or anything.
So
I guess we'll wait and see how that install goes. Is it done
that's
or
right.
is it today?
They're putting it in Wednesday, the upstairs. They did the downstairs yesterday.
Okay. So a little too early to find out, but at least she's got heat.
Yep, that's right.
Wow. So she still has time to change her mind.
It's good.
You might want to call her and ask her why she made the decision she made. Was it a money thing? Thank you. That's
Thank you.
that's a fascinating story, I think. That's a fun story. And I'm hoping that one of our next stories is one where you went out to a lead and we can find out that another company pulled the permit and sold the job. Although it sounds to me like the way you should, there are a bunch of different ways that we should be tracking leads. And one of them is a lead's a lead, even if it doesn't end up replacing equipment.
So one follow-up. So the one sale that I didn't make that I told you that I felt like it was a loss was, we offered the repair to replace the compressor, or we wouldn't offer the repair to replace the compressor. Well, anyway, somebody's doing a heat pump they pulled a permit for $6,000 for that one.
Okay. So you did lose that job.
Yeah, I did lose that job. And that, I looked it up. I've never even heard of that company, but they've got a 9% failure rate on their installations. They have a 4.3 Google rating. And they were, less than half our price if they were telling the truth on their permit.
Okay. And those are the people that only had one car.
Yes.
So they were real, and in the house had very little furniture in it.
Right. So for half, they probably got somebody to help pay for it or whatever, but that's me.
Right.
Mind reading, but
They needed to go. They needed to go with the cheapest person they could find, and they did.
so they were willing to take the risk of half price, get what I get.
Okay. So you lost a job.
That's right.
And it was on price.
On price.
Okay. Wow. I'm gonna have to promote that when I post this video.
There you go.
Jason lost a job. You got to wait till the
Right.
end to hear about it.